Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely fascinating tale of betrayal, wild resilience, and the sheer power of human ingenuity. We're diving straight into the story of the Jhagadu Bahus. These are daughters-in-law who literally turned an absolute disaster into the incredible Jagadu Bahu's jungle and sanctuary you see right here. This isn't just your standard survival story. No, it's a total masterclass in how a family, after being stripped of literally everything, used nature and a uniquely Indian concept of resourceful innovation known as Jugad to rebuild their lives from the dirt up. So, grab a notebook because the engineering and emotional resilience we're about to cover is seriously inspiring.
Let's start with a really tough question. What actually happens when the people you trust the most leave you with absolutely nothing? Picture this. You're living comfortably, right? Then, completely out of the blue, you discover your own aunt and uncle have deceitfully stolen your home. In our source material, Aunt Kanti and Uncle Ramesh tricked the elderly grandmother into signing over the property deeds by disguising them as insurance papers. And just like that, the moment the ink dries, the family's mercilessly thrown out onto the streets with nothing but the clothes on their backs. It's a chilling reminder, really, of how fast life can just flip upside down when greed infects a family.
Okay, moving into Section 1, Betrayal and the Exile. A family cast out. Let's see how this total nightmare unfolded.
Take a look at this timeline, because it shows how quickly everything fell apart. It wasn't just the betraying relatives who turned their backs on them. Every single safety net just vanished in a single day. In the morning, they're kicked out. By the afternoon, the grandmother, Sugandha, goes to her best friend, Sushma, who just coldly refuses to help. Late afternoon hits and she tries Tanvi, a neighbor whose daughter's wedding Sugandha actually helped fund, but Tanvi shuts the door too. Evening rolls around and a final desperate phone call to an aunt in Kerala ends in yet another rejection. So, with the whole village mocking them, they are forced to just walk into a dense, howling jungle as night falls. They're terrified with only a makeshift oil and stick torch crafted by the brothers to pierce that darkness.
That brings us to Section 2, Survival and the First Jagad, turning all that despair into action.
So, waking up in the jungle on day 2, hungry and completely lost, the despair really could have broken them. But instead, this is where that brilliant concept of Jugad comes into play. If you aren't familiar with the term, Jugad is basically a super flexible approach to problem solving. It's about using whatever limited resources you have in an innovative way, a truly resourceful workaround, and it became the literal foundation of their survival. When everyone else was just paralyzed by fear, the daughters-in-law Sunita and Ragini took a look at the riverbank. They didn't just see mud, they saw building material. They stepped up and took charge.
Faced with a family of hungry kids and exhausted adults, they didn't panic. Look at these steps. Step 1, they gather wet mud from the riverbank. Step 2, they mix it with dry dirt for structural integrity. Step 3, they knead it into a solid mound. And Step 4, they shape it into a highly functional cooking stove. Out of absolutely nothing, the brothers took their last remaining coins to gather some basic rations, and right there on the wild, the Bahusais fired up their homemade stove.
After successfully cooking their first meal of rice and dal, a really profound shift happens. Eating hot food out there under the vast starlit sky, the grandmother looks at her resourceful daughters-in-law and realizes a powerful truth. She says, "A home is built with loved ones, not bricks." This single mud stove was the spark, you guys. It gave them the confidence to actually claim the jungle as their own, proving that Jugad isn't just a physical survival tactic, it's a deeply resilient mindset.
Let's move on to Section 3, Building the Mud Kitchen. It's time to scale up that survival.
Of course, a simple stove wasn't going to be enough against the unpredictable wild. After a sudden, fierce windstorm ruins a freshly cooked meal and a terrifying close call with a snake slithering right up to the youngest child, Sonu, they knew they had to upgrade. Fast. To build a safe kitchen and eventually a full-scale house, the Bahus pioneered the specific 4-step Jugad technique. Step 1, gather massive amounts of river mud. Step 2, and this is crucial, reinforce the mud by mixing in dry leaves. It acts exactly like ancient rebar. Step 3, knead it thoroughly using their bare feet for hours to remove air pockets. Step 4, build thick walls. The result? Walls that dried in the blazing sun to become as rock-solid as stone.
But they needed a roof, right? So the brothers, Rahul and Praveen, constructed a sturdy wooden framework using thick jungle branches. Then they layered it with dense, dry grass. Finally, the Bahus meticulously sealed the entire structure with a heavy layer of their specialized mud mixture to waterproof it. This brilliant collaboration ensured their new sanctuary was completely sealed off and fortified against the harsh jungle elements. Now we hit Section 4, expanding the jungle sanctuary, transforming an empty shell into a real home. With the core structural walls and roof totally secure, they didn't just stop at the building itself. Check out this inventory. The Bahaus essentially sculpted an entire household's worth of furniture directly from the earth. I'm talking built-in kitchen shelves for safe storage, a custom mud chimney to safely vent smoke, and large earthen jars to keep their spices fresh. They even made a heavy-duty mud dining table with matching stools, elevated mud beds topped with soft grass, and, no way, a fully functional, comfortable mud sofa. They literally formed their comfort out of the dirt beneath their feet. It is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, beyond the sheer cool factor of having literal mud furniture, there was a massive practical benefit. As they noted, it feels like an AC is running inside, and that too without electricity. The thick, carefully kneaded mud walls provided incredible natural insulation. While the jungle was just baking under the daytime sun, the interior of their mud house remained refreshingly cool. It felt so comfortable that it gave them a peaceful, air-conditioned retreat from the extreme heat.
Which brings us to Section 5, thriving in nature, building a microeconomy.
You see, this survival turned into true independence because every single family member pitched in. They basically established a robust microeconomy right there in the middle of the wild. As you can see in the table, the brothers went to the market as day laborers, earning money by carrying sacks and selling gathered wood. Madhav, the father, cleared a patch of land and became the farmer, growing fresh, organic vegetables to eat and sell. And the Bahus, they turned their incredible mud-working skills into a full-on potter's business, crafting and selling those naturally cooling earth and water jugs. Together, they earned enough money to not just eat well, but to actually send the children back to school.
And that perfectly sets up Section 6, Karma and the Return. Justice is finally served. Meanwhile, back in the city, Karma was seriously catching up to the relatives who stole their original home. Look at this comparison, because the contrast is staggering. On the left, we have the Jagadu Bahu's jungle and sanctuary, built on honest hard work, peaceful, naturally cooling, and housing a thriving, self-sufficient family. On the right, Aunt Kanti and Uncle Ramesh's stolen, expensive brick mansion. They turned it into a completely toxic environment. Their son, Rajat, got heavily involved in a lucrative but highly illegal drug ring, dealing marijuana and heroin. And this dark path ultimately ended with a massive police raid, resulting in the entire betraying family being arrested and thrown straight into prison. Because the corrupt relatives were now behind bars, justice finally happened. The neighbor, Sushma, the very same one who had initially turned them away, actually sought them out in the jungle to apologize and delivered the big news. The stolen house was legally returned to the family. But here's the twist. Living in the wild had profoundly shifted their perspective forever. Their hearts remained in the jungle.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative question to reflect on today. Is a house of mud built with love worth more than a mansion built on lies? Despite getting their massive city mansion back, the family chose to keep the Jagdu Bahu's jungle and sanctuary as their true, permanent home. They realized that the ultimate foundation of a sanctuary isn't made of expensive bricks, cement, or stolen wealth. It's built on resilience, incredible Jagad ingenuity, and above all else, love. It really makes you wonder, if everything was stripped away from you tomorrow, what kind of foundation would you build on? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.